Hey, it's Matt Pinfield. I'm very excited on the show to have a bass player that I love. I mean, he's such an incredible player. He's played with so many people and has such a great sound. And there's so many things about him. He's between his talent and just as a person. I mean, he's been a part of this Los Angeles music scene for a very long time. And I've been really wanting to have him on the show for a while. So I'm glad I finally have him today. And I'm talking about Rudy Sarzo. Rudy, good to see you, man.
Matt, great to be in your show. Really looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah,
I'm
hey,
a huge fan. I've been following you since way back.
Yeah, thank you
on
so much,
MTV.
Rudy.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
vice versa, right? Because,
yeah,
you playing with Dio and Ozzy and Quiet Riot. And,
yeah.
it's, just being a kid who grew up loving rock and roll like I have since since I could walk, probably. Rock and roll was such a big thing for me. Talk to me about with you, and like being and your Cuban background. Tell me about your first memories of music and rock and roll. Tell me about that, Rudy.
Music. Okay, music. I was born in 1950. I'm 73 years old, so I started listening to music because in Cuba, music is a huge part of it.
Yeah,
And there was music everywhere you went, and a lot of the American talents, so groups and bands and so on, they used to come to Cuba and perform. And so we had a really good blend of the native music, which is Afro-Cuban. It's a blend of Spanish, like classical Spanish music, and African. So there were so many fusions of that. But then also there is the pure African music, which still it thrives today. And it's very tribal. It's chanting and playing percussion. It's like a drum circle, you know. And so I grew up with that. Actually, most of the music that I was listening to or that was being played in the places that I would visit with my parents was Latin jazz.
wow, that's
You know,
great.
the kind of that Dizzy Gillespie started to perform once he incorporated percussion into his band. He had a Cuban percussionist with him, Manteca. And
Yeah,
then also Duke Ellington, so it was a very sophisticated, complex, harmonically, a type of music. And then around the mid 50s, that's when we started getting like not only Elvis, but we got Little Richard
yeah,
and Fats Domino,
yeah.
the the pillars of
Those
rock and roll.
those guys are, obviously deserve so much credit too. I'm a huge Fats Domino fan and Bo Diddley, and I
Mm.
love like
Oh
all the
yeah,
stuff. Those
yeah.
those guys laid the groundwork. You know what I mean? In so many ways, it was just so much great stuff for rock. But I love that you had the ability to fuse. So when you started? Were you playing? How old were you when you picked up the guitar the first time?
Well, pick up. Well, actually, we think it wasn't like it is to nowadays that you have like rock music in schools, School of Rock or anything like that. But in school, in the music programs in school, uh, back in the day, it was all marching band.
Yeah,
So it was all brass instruments, or percussion, like playing drums. And so I started playing trombone and then trumpet. But you can't pick up girls, playing trombone or trumpet.
yeah.
You have to have a guitar.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
know.
But but
So,
but so many people
yeah.
get started in marching band. There's a lot of great rock and rollers and people that have and soul singers and everything, and that got started in marching band. There's many.
Yeah. Well, soul singers to me, they come from gospel, from
Yeah,
gospel being sung at church,
yeah,
which is another thing that I think, the way that the family unit used to be when I arrived in the United States in 1961, it was, there were certain traditions that came from the 40s and the 50s and still existed in the 60s. So that people going to church on Sunday. And I mean, if I look back at my favorite singers, let's say from Motown, they were all gospel influence, or even Elvis was gospel influence, which is something that I think it might be missing today in the modern, rock musicians, they don't have that influence so much in them anymore. And but growing up, I picked up the guitar right when the Beatles came in, 1964. I saw the Beatles on Ed Sullivan. That's it happened. And then the camera panned to the girls in the audience going berserk, and I said, I want some of that.
Yeah, of course. I mean, that like changed the world. I mean, it was unbelievable. That February 1964, when those guys got off that plane at JFK, which which had a different name, of course, at the time, but it was, when they got to the airport and then they got to play on there. I mean, it changed everything, right? It's why so many people picked up the instrument. And so, as you were, how young were you then? So that would be, you were about 14, right? So something like that.
13. I had just turned 13, yeah, in November of the year before. But to me, the whole thing that I witnessed was I was living in Miami. Then my family got relocated in 1963 to New Jersey, to West New York. We started living there. And there weren't too many Latinos at the time. Now West New York is full of Cubans and
West
whatever.
New York and Jersey City and all those areas surrounding there. Like around Hoboken and because I lived in Jersey City Heights for a while, and I'm from like East Brunswick, New Brunswick. So that's where I grew up. So it's amazing. There's a huge Cuban population there now, an incredible access to Cuban food, Portuguese food. Like there's stuff. I love the food up there. You know what I mean? It's still when I go back.
I know what you mean.
You know the deal. But that's really cool. So you were there in Jersey. Did you go to see like any of those shows, like when Murray the K or any of those other guys were doing shows? Did you ever go to like Asbury Park or any of those places, Convention Hall, when you were younger? Because they used to have bands play. I mean, or was it because you were so young? There was, like me, nobody would take you there, huh?
Yeah, I was too young to get on the bus by myself and go and catch a show. The first time I played Asbury Park was with Ozzy in 1981. We played at that big venue next to the hotel.
Yeah, Convention Hall. Yeah,
Convention Hall. Yeah, we played there. Yeah.
And that was
the first time.
That was great because that's you're probably thinking about how that goes up and around towards the Hudson. You know what I mean? Where you grew up in West New York, because West New York's right across from New York City, right there.
Yeah.
You know. But so tell me, from that moment when you discovered the British Invasion and the Beatles, and when did you make that transition to bass? Like when was it time that you?
Yeah, so we came back to Miami about a couple of years later, and back in the day, our social network was the local garage band. Whatever was in your block, that garage band, that's how you socialize. And so I went down with my Spiegel catalog old Craftsman acoustic guitar.
Yeah.
that I share with my brother, that my mom and dad got me for Christmas. And so I went down and I introduced myself and I said, yeah, I want to join your band. Then I looked around, there's like 6 other guitar players or guys that own guitars, basically. And one of the guys says, well, we got too many guitars. If you want to be in our band, you got to play bass. And I went, what's that? And they go, it's like playing a solo during the whole song. I'm in.
Yeah, that's amazing. And that was in that era of garage bands. There were so many cool things that were coming out. Excuse me, like the Music Machine, Talk, Count 5, Psychotic Reaction, all those great. I loved all that stuff. 1966, there was so many great things that were, bands that, like you said, kids started in different neighborhoods. You know what I mean? So
yeah, exactly.
There was amazing American garage rock that was happening then.
There was a sound that people are trying to replicate today, which is those silver tone amps that you buy at Sears, and the guitars made out of Formica, the really cheap guitars, silver tone guitars and then electros and things like that. Now people are gravitating towards that because they had a certain sound and vibe that was very reminiscent of what was going on at that time.
Yeah, because there were so many cool bands, I mean, it was a lot of great stuff. And then, of course, shortly after that, all the psychedelic stuff started happening. But I love the fact that you had a mutual appreciation for soul music, too, because you loved soul music,
Oh, I love soul music.
I still
play
do.
what?
Yeah,
Oh
you
yeah,
do.
me
Yeah,
growing up, I play more Motown than anything else because if you were in Miami in the Latin community, and this is pre-Santana, the closest thing we had to Latin music was actually Motown, which is soul, and then funk with the Sly and the Family Stone, dance music. That's
yeah.
you have to make the people dance, and then playing in bars, the same thing. You're in Miami, so it's like a tourist attraction going to bars, so you gotta keep those tourists drinking and dancing all night long. And the funkier you are, and the more R&B and soul you play, the better.
Yeah, I mean, and there were so many great things. You mentioned Sly and Family Stone, those records also unbelievable and so great. Like you said, it was because yeah, Santana was didn't put out that first record till like end of 69, 70, right? So it was like
Yeah,
70 when that first album
exactly.
came out after they did Woodstock. Um,
Yeah, right. Yeah.
but I, there was that was the beautiful thing. There was so much great music at that time, and it also was probably one of those things for you, right, where that gave you your chops too, because when you had to play out and you were performing live, doing a bunch of sets in Miami, like for people to entertain and dance. Who were your favorite bass players back then? Who did you like?
Oh my, well, I mean, there was a guy in our neighborhood named Jacko.
Jaco
Jacko
Pastorius?
Pastorius. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. That's
Yeah,
so
yeah. I
great.
mean, yeah, Jacko was inspiring and scary at the same time because I thought, whoa, this guy's unbelievable. But there's got to be 1,000 guys like this around. I have no idea there was only one Jacko, so it's kind of like, I had to make choices like, what am I going to do? Okay, well, I think I'm going to stick with like rock, like Zeppelin and Deep Purple because it's not as sophisticated, harmonically as more blues oriented, rather than the jazz, all the harmony, all the derivative of bebop and
Yeah.
going into Miles Davis later on and all that. So it's like, well, I don't have the education to be able to handle that.
Yeah, but you did great. And then like, of course, there was that period where, 68, 69, Yardbirds into Zeppelin and early Deep Purple, their first singer, Rod Evans, right? And then I mean, they went through all those great years with Ian Gillan, too. And, you know,
Absolutely, and a couple of my friends, David Coverdale and Glenn Hughes, were in the band
yeah, when
later
when
on.
Burn
Yeah,
came out, man, I love that record, so I thought it was so
I
great.
love love that record. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
it's just one of
Yeah,
my favorites, and
yeah.
I when and you've been friends for a long time with Glenn and David, but when David told me he was like 16 when he was on that record, my mind was blown, you know,
I know. It's unbelievable. Yeah. Yeah.
you
What
know,
incredible talent. I mean, I got to play with David and Whitesnake.
yes,
So,
which is
I got to learn a lot about the behind the scenes of what was going on at the time. Because, I've been a fan longer than I've been a professional musician. So anytime that I find that I'm in a band, like for example, when I was playing with the Guess Who and Blue Oyster Cult, two of my favorite bands growing up,
yeah.
I got to ask a lot of questions.
See, you would do what I would do, Rudy, because I love those bands as well. So like I always wanted to know about No Time and you know what I mean and Undone and
Yes. Oh yeah.
No Sugar
Yeah.
Tonight, New Mother Nature or Share the Land. I mean, I loved all those.
Yeah.
I loved all that stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Laughing. I mean, and then Blue Oyster Cult. As
Yeah.
a kid
Yeah.
buying secret treaties and hearing like Dominance and Submission and ME 252, 262. Like I love, and then of course it was great when they broke through with Agents of Fortune. I was so happy because it was like, hey, telling people, see this band that I liked for this long, these, and it was nice to see, so all that
Yeah.
music I loved as a kid growing up and still do,
Yeah.
It
Yeah,
was,
and actually to get to play those songs with them, with Buck Dharma and Eric Bloom, great band. He's got, they have a great band, and it was incredible.
yes. So tell me about that. What was it like when you actually first sat down with Buck Dharma? He's such a good guy. I mean,
He's a great
and
guy.
Eric,
Yeah,
and wrote great songs. I mean, so was that? Tell me how you ended up being in both the Guess Who. Let's hear both Guess Who and Blizzard Cold. Tell me about the Guess Who first.
yeah. With the Guess Who, yes, I'm good friends with Sass Jordan and her husband Derek Sharp is the current singer for the Guess Who.
Yeah.
So when they were looking for a bass player, this is like over 10 years ago, they recommended me. She did, Sass. And so I got the phone call, and that's how I joined the band. And with Blue Oyster Cult, I've known Eric Bloom since the 80s.
Yeah.
And I had just been playing with Ronnie James Dio and his band Dio. And then he got together with Heaven and Hell, which is the Black Sabbath version of him being in the band. And so he started doing touring. And I just happened to get a phone call from Eric saying, "Hey, can you come in and do this gig next week? This weekend. Here's the list." So basically, it was kind of like I show up at the gig, we shake hands. "Hey, hi guys, nice to meet you. Okay, let's go on stage." No rehearsal, no nothing, and that was like.
And here you go. You go on stage and you're doing "This Ain't the Summer of Love" or "Hot Rails to Hell" or one of those great songs, and you're like, "Okay, cool. I know ET." You know what I mean? You do those. It was. Still, those songs hold up. I mean, "Burning for You" is one of the greatest singles of all time, too. Even late, like stuff like that, the early and the later stuff. I love Blue Oyster Cult. Tell me, what was your favorite Blue Oyster Cult record, and what was your favorite Guess Who record? What were the ones that you loved? Or song?
Oh my God. Back in the day, I used to buy greatest hits.
Oh yeah, the best of the Guess Who was the one that I loved. That was the album for me. With that side, it goes from These Eyes and "Hand Me Down World," "Hang On to Your Life."
Hand Me Down World.
I love "Hand Me Down World." Like, it's great.
I know, me too.
Even that ballad, "Do You Miss Me, Darling?" I mean, I love all those songs.
Yeah. I got to play them all.
That is one of the. I got that Best of the Guess Who record. I remember I got money for my birthday in 1974, and I went out and I bought that and Diamond Dogs and like BTO2, with "Let It Ride." You know what I mean? Speaking of the Guess Who connection, right? And those were the 3 albums I bought.
Yeah. I miss those days of going to the record store, and I knew the guy at the register, and they would play a record. As you walk in, you hear this record, and then they'll have the cover.
Yeah, they'd have the cover behind them or like in a little stand thing, right?
Exactly. And you go, "Oh, who's that?" And he'll go, "Oh, this guy, David Bowie, Spiders from Mars." And go, "Oh, okay, get me a copy."
Yeah, exactly.
I'm going home with that. Yeah, I miss that.
Yeah,
I really do.
Oh, so do I. I mean, I love that culture of being able to go to a record store and somebody turning you on to something, or somebody sees what you got in your hand and they're like, "Yeah, if you like that, you would like this," or you ask the guy at the counter, "Hey, is there anything really cool that And that was one of the things. If I thought a record looked really cool too, like the cover, I'd be like, "I'll check that band out," and take a shot, right? Over the years.
Yeah. And I remember going to stores like, let's say, Kmart or something like that. That really was not a record store, but they had a record department, and then they'll have like a rack, like an end cap.
Yeah.
A rack of, like, let's say, CBS. CBS had these new rock and roll releases, and just because it was on a label that I trusted, I would buy it. I would say, "Okay, this is new on CBS. Columbia Records or Epic, and wow, this looks like a cool album cover." Or I'll read a little bit about it, see who produced it.
Yeah,
and
that was big for me in the 70s because I loved Aerosmith, so I saw that Jack Douglas produced Stars, the band with the Z, and I was like, oh, and it's managed by Rocksteady, which ended up being Bill Aucoin, but of course managed Kiss. So I look at the cover and go, well, I recognize those from the other albums that I have. Oh, I'm going to buy this and take it home and give it a shot, And that's how I discovered Stars, and like back in the day. And then I discovered Judas Priest opening for them in REO Speedwagon when they put out Sin After Sin, and I was like, holy, who are these guys? Went home and bought that record. So, that was the way it was. You would go, and it was those department stores, like the one on the East Coast. You might remember this. There's one called Corvettes, and there was like Grant's, Woolworths, all those places. But
the Good Guys.
Two guys, Two guys, Good guys. Two guys. Yeah, Two Guys of Harrison. You probably went there, right? Yeah, that's it. It was like they had great record departments for 45s and albums, and they weren't huge, but it was really good stuff. Yeah, I miss it. That brings back a lot of memories. You know what I mean? It's great. But that's really cool.
Yeah.
Tell me about What did you? I mean, so it was great. You ended up doing like the Holy Diver, live and playing with that. Was the Dio experience fun to play? How was it playing with Ronnie?
It was incredible. By the time that I started playing with Ronnie in 2004, I had been doing for about 23 years. I started out with Ozzy in 81. So that's like 23 years. And I thought, okay, I've experienced everything. And no, once I started playing with Ronnie, it was a whole different level of musical integrity and kindness and originality. Ronnie always sounded like Ronnie. It wasn't like, it was like you are when I was playing with an American original
Oh yeah,
in the band, you know.
yeah.
Um, and it's always the last time I played with him was November 16th, 2009. Uh, and the next day he had to go to emergency, and then they suggested that he should see an oncologist. But we were rehearsing for a couple of weeks because we were about to go to England and Scandinavia to do the yearly Dio tour for
Yeah.
the fans, in a Christmas tour.
Yeah.
And I gotta tell you, he sang so wonderful. And what happened was at that time he was playing with Heaven and Hell. So the band Dio stopped doing Black Sabbath songs. So then we went deeper into the Rainbow catalog,
Yeah.
and we were rehearsing songs that he hadn't sang since he left Rainbow,
Yeah. I love
back in the day.
Starstruck, man, and Rainbow Rising. I love those records. You know what I mean? And so I remember, those. I was always following him, and so and just like I love that you play with him. Tell me about the playing with Ozzy from '81 to '83. Tell me what about that experience.
Yeah, with Ozzy Osbourne. Well, I it all came about because
I know I'm going
I
backwards and I'm jumping all over, but it's just cool.
oh
It's
no, this is great. This is great. I love it. In 1978, I joined Quiet Riot with Randy Rhoads in the band. And by 79, Randy leaves Quiet Riot to join Ozzy. Fast forward to 1981, after uh, Randy, Ozzy, Bob Daisley, and Lee Kerslake had finished recording Blizzard of Oz. They did a tour in England, I believe some dates in Europe. I'm not 100% because I wasn't there. And then they went in to record the Diary of a Madman tour. So that was Blizzard was released, and then Diary was in the can, waiting to be released when I joined the band in 1981. Um, Tommy Aldridge was already in the band, and the missing piece was the bass player. And Randy Rhoads recommended me, and that's how I got to be in the band. Um, then we did the Blizzard of Oz tour with Motorhead supporting for the first leg of the tour. Then the second leg was Def Leppard,
yeah.
and by then the band had really gotten momentum because we really concentrated in the Northeast area. There was a lot of metal fans in
Yeah,
that area.
that's where we're from.
Yeah,
Where I'm from, and you lived
yeah.
for a little while, so you know.
Yeah, so we played everywhere. We played Nassau Coliseum. We played the Capitol Theater. We did the Asbury Park
Convention
Convention
hall.
Center.
Yeah,
All that whole area, and we just get up the Palladium.
yeah.
Uh,
Love the New
so we
York
just
Palladium, by the way. Remember how great that was? A great venue back in the day. I
oh
love that.
great. We did two shows that night
Yeah,
that we played there, and the band had been together for about a week when we did it. So we just just concentrated on a more dense market, so we could get more exposure and word of mouth too. So by September, we took a break, August, September, and then by October, we were back on the road again with starting over in Europe, opening up for Saxon, but it was the beginning of our Diary of a Madman tour.
yeah. When you guys were
And then
introducing Flying High again and everything, right at that point.
all
Yeah,
of that, yeah.
yeah,
And then we came back to the United States, and we did the first show December 30th at the Cow Palace in San Francisco for Diary of a Madman. and then Randy passed away March 19th,
Yeah.
and that was yeah, that was devastating for everybody.
I mean, I can only
So
imagine. I mean, it was just that was one of the most. It was just such heartbreaking news to rock fans. But you guys, and you knowing him for so long, and he just inspired so many people. You know, and
yeah, and to actually be there to experience, the tragedy, that left so many scars in everybody. So I lost the joy of making music. So I knew that I kept going on stage because it was decided that we are going to keep moving on, because if Ozzy would have gone back home, let's say the rest of the tour would get canceled, he would most likely drank himself to death.
yeah, because that was very. It was a heartbreaking situation. It
Yeah.
that the relationship of what you guys had on that tour, and what he had created with Randy, and that friendship, and and that creative unit, was I'm sure I can only imagine, and I know that we've talked about it, but I just I mean I can't imagine just the feeling that day, but I'm glad there's some documented stuff that like the tribute record, and there are things that are there.
Yes.
But it's
Yeah.
heartbreaking, you know what I mean? And he's still a hero to so many. You know what I mean, Randy, which is great. So I'm glad you guys continued on, because I'm sure that kept Ozzy alive at that
Yeah,
period of
sure
time.
did. Yeah.
Tell me about the Quiet Riot days. So when you joined Quiet Riot, that was about 1978.
78. Yes, I joined Quiet Riot in 78. By 79, Randy was gone, and then the name Quiet Riot ceased to be used for a band. Then Kevin started his own band called Dubrow, and the last 8 months right before I joined Ozzy, I started playing with Dubrow. I was also playing in a band called Angel. I don't know if you remember
Oh, I
them,
love. I saw
Casablanca.
Angel. Hell, I saw the
Yeah.
On Earth as It Is in Heaven tour, and
Yeah.
and I loved all hell of a band. The first album, White Hot. I have all those records. I
Oh
was a
yeah.
huge fan.
Oh
So
yeah.
yeah, I saw them also with Judas Priest opening at the New York Palladium, or they were second on the bill with Stained Class, and then the Gods. Remember the Gods? Gods of Rock
The
and Roll Machine.
gods.
Got to keep it running.
Yeah.
So I saw that triple bill, because I wanted to see Angel, because I was an Angel fan.
Awesome.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I love
Yeah.
those records. So
So
yeah,
so I was in the band, and I was playing with Kevin in Dubrow and living with Kevin. And I get the phone call. Actually, I get the phone call first from Sharon, and she goes, "Hi, Rudy. I'm Sharon, and I manage Ozzy. And Randy's been telling me about you, and how would you like to come down to audition?" And I immediately, because I was really so much into Angel, I turned it down. It's like, "Oh no, thank you. I'm in this band called Angel." She hangs up on me.
yeah. Oh my God, yeah.
But now I'm still living. I'm sleeping on the floor in Kevin DuBro's apartment, and I don't have any money to eat. But I was always into it. I've always been a band guy.
Yeah, of
You know,
course.
my
And what was out then? Sinful by Angel? What was like the current record when you were in the band then?
Well, they had just lost the deal with Casablanca, and
Yeah.
we were working on a new deal with another label. But even by the time that that I left the band, they had nothing solidified
Yeah.
about the record deal. So the next day, I get the call, another call. This time it's Ozzy, and by then Kevin had yelled at me for turning down the audition. He put some sense into me, and I said, "Oh God, okay, I made a big mistake." Because the reality was that I was going to get to play with Randy again. That was like the big, because I never played with Ozzy, so I had no reference or connection with him. Of course, I had respect and I love what he did with Black Sabbath, but as far as knowing what I was going to be like, hey, you're going to play with Randy again. Oh wow, I missed out on that one. How stupid of me. So the next day, I get the call from Ozzy, and he says, "Listen, we checked out a bunch of guys, and Randy still says you're the guy. So how would you like to come down?" And by then, it was like, yes, I'll
Yeah.
be right there. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, exactly. Especially because if you in a at that period of time of it, just trying to figure out what's going on with Angel. Do you ever see Frank
Yeah.
Domino or any of the guys? Or
I see them when
Greg
when
or
I go
Punky
to
or
yeah, Greg Jafria, Punky Meadows. Yeah, I run into them, especially with Frank. He lives in Vegas, so
yeah,
I see him many times that I go visit Las Vegas.
yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, great.
Good
Frank's
guys.
got a great voice, man. I love
Oh,
those
yeah.
records, man. I really like when I got that first record with the Tower and Rock and Rollers, and then hell of a band. You're feeling right, and
Yeah.
all those songs. I mean, I was really, and then
Yeah.
on Earth as it is in Heaven, it's great. I always thought I was like, God, these guys need a hit. They deserve a hit, Like they put out that Magic Touch and the Winter Song and all the stuff, but it was, but I loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Did a cover of that.
ain't,
What I was familiar with the Rascals version
yeah,
of
I ain't gonna eat my heart out
Ain't Out My
anymore.
Heart
Right?
anymore. Yeah.
Yeah, that was cool. They released that, and Don't Leave Me Lonely was
Yeah.
on that record, which was great.
Yes. Yes.
And so there are great songs on there. I was
Yeah.
huge into that. You know what I mean? So I
Oh,
loved,
yeah.
I loved, as you can tell, all kinds of music, growing up, but I was really into all those bands, and I was, but it was so cool that you ended up doing that and joining Ozzy. How were the Quiet Riot days? Were they fun? Did you enjoy? What was that experience like when you were playing with Kevin and the bro? What was that?
I mean, which version? The Randy version or the Mental Health
The
version?
mental health version, yeah.
Oh, Mental Health version. Okay. So how I joined or went back to play with Kevin and of course with Frankie Banali, but Frankie's a different story.
Yeah, Miss
Um,
Frankie.
I was let's see, I get a phone call from Kevin right before I'm going to New York to record Speak of the Devil, which is the Ozzy Black Sabbath re-recordings live at the Ritz. Did you
Yeah.
ever go to the Ritz? Yeah.
Yeah, of
Okay.
course. I used to go there all the time. Yeah, right?
There you go. Okay.
Yeah,
Did you
absolutely.
see that show?
Yeah,
The
I
one that
did.
we did with oh, great.
I
Okay.
was there for that.
Uh,
Yeah, that's why I was so glad it came out
yeah.
as a live album.
Yeah, 2 nights. That was the purpose of playing there, was to record it.
Yeah, it was
Two
insane,
nights.
right? And
Yeah.
I went one night because I could only afford to go one night, and I think I had to work, but it was still great
Yeah.
though.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And that was the last time I ever played with Ozzy. So yeah, so I'm in LA getting ready to go to New York, and I get a call from Kevin. He says, "Hey man, we're in the studio, and there looks like there's a record deal happening, and how would you like to come down and play on Thunderbird, which is a song that Kevin wrote for Randy when Randy left Quiet Riot to join Ozzy, and I used to play that with him in Dubrow, so I knew the song." And so I went down to the studio, and there's Frankie Banali. Now, Frankie Banali, I have met 10 years prior in Florida, and I met him on my birthday, November 18th, 1972. How we met was the night before, November 17th, uh, Frankie's band, Ginger, opened up for Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars, the only American tour that they did. They happened to be playing in Dania, Florida, at a place called Pirates World.
And and Bowie and the Spiders played there. That's amazing. That's great because I know they did.
Yeah.
Santa Monica
Yeah.
Civic
So,
Center was like the big
yeah.
bootleg that was out that I had as a kid, But that's cool that you
Yeah.
guys played with him there. Wow, that's
Oh
great.
no, I didn't. It was Frankie.
Oh, it was
Frankie's
Frankie.
band.
Oh, wow.
I went to see Bowie, and I walk in, and there's this band. I had no idea who they were, and they blew me away. The drummer, especially. So that was an impression. And then the next day, I went to the local hangout place called the Flying Machine in Fort Lauderdale, and it was my birthday, and I'm talking with some friends, and somebody goes, "Hey, that's one of the guys that opened up for Bowie last night." So I ran over to tell him, "Hey, I love the band. I saw you guys last night opening up for Bowie, and the drummer, he was amazing." And so I go up, telling him how great the drummer was. Then he smiles and shakes my hand and goes, "I'm Frankie. I am the drummer." Because I thought he was the bass player. I was in the cheap seats and all the way in the back.
Oh, yeah.
So we hit it up, and we started playing immediately in South Florida. We were playing rock in clubs. Then disco happened. This is the early 70s,
Like
74,
75, something like that. Yeah.
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 Yeah. So we left, and we wound up in Chicago. So we played the whole Midwest circuit. We were based out of Chicago, and we played everywhere in Michigan, Indiana, Illinois, Wisconsin, Iowa, that whole area. And then in 77, we had enough money saved. We moved over to LA. And in the band, we had this keyboard player, guitar player. His name is Bob Marlette. I don't know if you know him. He's a big producer.
Yeah, Bob Marlette. Yeah, he's a great dude.
Yeah.
But that's
Yeah,
great.
he's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he was he was in our band, and we all moved in together to LA. And we run out of money, so we went our separate ways. And by '78, I came back to LA, and that's when I joined Quiet Riot. So that was So finally, I'm in the studio with Frankie after all the struggling that we did to keep the rhythm section together.
Yeah.
So that brought joy back. Being with my friends, and here's the difference from playing with Ozzy and Tommy Aldridge and playing with Kevin and Frankie. See, by the time that I joined Ozzy had been successful, he was a bona fide rock star, by 1981,
Yeah.
with Black Sabbath, 15, 16 years of doing this. Tommy Aldridge, the same thing, Black Oak, Arkansas, Pat Travers, and so on.
Yeah.
Me and Randy, we were just getting started. We were just like, I'm just getting started with my career here. So I needed to be playing with people that were going through the same phase in my career.
Yeah.
As I was. And people who I needed to go back and put a band together, take it from the ground up, get that record deal, go on that first tour, build it. Doing all the heavy lifting as a band collectively, So I found that in, of course, people that I already have been playing with and struggling with Frankie Benelli and Kevin DuBrow. Carlos, I had just met at the session. So I cut really quickly. Thunderbird, Slick Black Cadillac, which is the only song that made it from the Randy Rhoads era to the Mental Health era, and then Love's a Bitch and Let's Get Crazy, which were DuBrow songs. So by the time I left the session, even though it's still a member of Ozzy, I recorded like four songs for what became the Mental Health record. And so I go to New York, I do the recording with Ozzy, and I come back and had to make the toughest decision ever made in my career, which was to leave one of the biggest bands in the world, Ozzy Osbourne. And they treated me great. Ozzy and Sharon, from day one, they were incredibly gracious and kind with me. To leave that for the complete unknown. I had no idea what was going to happen with the band. All I knew was I was going to get the joy of making music again, because it was very, very tough going on stage without Randy. Really was.
Oh, I'm sure that left a big, heartbreak in the hole. But I love that you went back and worked with Kevin, and the stories are amazing, and it was just great to see a metal record album go to #1. It was like the first time in America where it was like that crossover was so great to see. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But then again, we had the help of MTV. I mean, a whole generation.
Yeah.
All the bands from the Sunset Strip from the '80s, we had that. We had MTV videos, and they were getting played.
But yeah, I mean, you were the first. I mean, it was like, after that, after the initial run with Van Halen and other people, but it was amazing because the timing was perfect, and it was, and you guys did, and Quiet Riot had already released like 2 albums in Japan, right? But this was the first American record, right, through Scotty Brothers, and.
Yeah, I mean, with 2 albums in Japan, the American promoters didn't care. The agents, they didn't care. They couldn't book us because there was no radio airplay. You couldn't even buy the record in the United States. It was just
it was weird. You couldn't really get Japanese imports back in that day. Not like you can today, I mean, get some British ones, but you couldn't really find that stuff. But it was. When that broke, what was that feeling like for you and Kevin and Frank, like back in that period of time when you realized that the record all of a sudden was taken off? When the Slade cover, of course, and I know that famously Kevin didn't want to do that song. When he and I finally met and had a long talk about '70s glam, because we were rapping about what we loved. He said to me, he goes, "I always love Sweet more than Slade." You know what I mean? So we were like just talking. I love both, but it was the story is just pretty amazing. Looking back on it.
Yeah, Humble Pie, Steve Marriott. That was his band. That was Kevin's favorite band.
Yeah.
And
did he like do?
Slade,
I was going to say, did he ever do was he into covering in the early years any I don't need no Doctor or Hot and Nasty? All those songs were cool, weren't they? It was great stuff. 30 Days in the Hole
song.
Yeah,
we did Tin Soldier.
Tin Soldier's great, which is Small Faces, right?
Yes.
I love the Small Faces stuff. That stuff was great too.
Me too.
Man, Itchy Park and all that stuff was so good.
Tremendous.
I love
Yeah.
those records. So it's like, but I
Yeah.
love that, and it was, I was really sad when Kevin passed away because
Yeah.
I just really gotten to know him because, we met at a VH1 Rock Honors and we saw each other and he goes, dude, we got to talk rock and roll. You know what I mean? Like we had been, and so that's what we did that whole night after the show. We just talked about music, you know what I mean? And the music we grew up on and loved. So it broke my heart when Kevin passed. But those were, tell me what it was like when you saw the trajectory changing with Mental Health was like for you. I mean, you obviously played with Ozzy, who was a major star. But what was that feeling like for you, Rudy, when you're going through that and seeing that all of a sudden people are recognizing and understanding our band and we're getting love out there? What was that?
That's a great question because there was a mix of things. The reason why I left Ozzy was because Randy wasn't there. But the reason I went back to playing with Kevin was to rekindle that integrity that Randy had created within the band. The band had incredible musical integrity while Randy was in Quiet Riot.
Yeah.
And by that I mean we didn't talk about any politics, any religion, who's going out with who. It was all about music. That's all we talked about. And it was to go back into that core of what Quiet Riot was, with Randy as the leader of the band, but he led by example. It's not like he had to tell us what to do, And that was still very much alive at that time, because Kevin will always listen to Randy. As a matter of fact, every time that we took a break from Ozzy, we used to fly back home to LA, take a car that would pick us up and take us to Kevin's place, pick him up and go to the Rainbow and give him a report of what's going on out there. He said, okay, Kev, those songs that you're doing with DeBro, well, there's these bands like Def Leppard, there's a band called Girl, and it's pretty much like what you're doing. And they're signed. We've been touring with them. So keep doing what you're doing because you're gonna get there. You're gonna get that record deal that you're looking for. So that whole essence of what the Randy version of Quiet Riot really filtered over to the Mental Health version of Quiet Riot. The album Mental Health was dedicated to Randy, to his memory. The song that I went in to record, Thunderbird, was a song that was written for him. So his spirit was very, very much alive in the band. And that was our catalyst.
Yeah.
That really, really, really drove us, So we were just kind of like busy doing that. We were busy celebrating Randy at that moment with the album Mental Health.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's good. I'm really happy to hear that. That's why it was spiritually. It's a good thing when you remember you're in love the bandmates that were coming up with you. You know what I mean? And I think that's a really important thing. It's you know what I'm talking about. I just it's incredible. It's incredible when you see the mortality of life. When you just life is a precious thing, right? And it's and especially guys you were coming up fighting the fight with, you know what I mean? Trying to get recognized, doing the gigs, sleeping on the same floor with, or in a small place, there's those memories and those things that build our character and who we are, you know what I mean? And I think that that's amazing. But I love that. But for you, and you've done, what I've loved, Rudy, is you've done so many different cool things, and I love that you're doing the version of the band now as well. So talk to me about some of this and what you've been up to. Like the last couple of years, what have been some of your favorite things that you've been doing? Because I love for me seeing you out at shows, and it always brings a smile to my face. Having seen you with Ozzy, seen you with Quiet Riot, for me that's a really cool thing. So that was why I've always wanted to get together and do this with you today. And it's perfect because we've got the OC Air Metal Meltdown happening. Talk to me about that.
Okay, well, it's I love the question that you just asked me because it's a broad picture to it, but it's very very direct, meaning that the reason why I came back to play with Quiet Riot was to, first of all, Frankie requested, as you know, days before he passed away, that I returned to the band, which is the same purpose as when I returned to playing with Frankie and Kevin after Randy passed away.
Yeah.
You know, you always kind of like come back home, get things together again. You know,
Yeah.
from your heart, from your spirit. You know, have that collective. Uh, it's love. It really is. It's
Yeah.
a collective love for the music and the legacy that we have all been a part of. You know, and so now when I step out my house to go to the airport, there is a purpose for me. It's not just about, oh, I'm going to go on the road and play a bunch of songs and go on tour. No, no. Now there's a purpose, which is to celebrate the legacy of the band and the memory of those who are no longer with us. You know, Frankie, Kevin, Randy Rhoads, and every night on stage, that's what we do. We
Yeah.
celebrate, and 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 if they cannot be here because they've gone, they're passed on to the next level. Uh, the guys that I'm playing with right now, who were actually handpicked by the previous members of the band, such as Alex Grossi, our guitar player, is our third Quiet Riot official Quiet Riot guitar player. You got Randy, you got Carlos Cavasso, and Alex has been in the band for over 20 years.
Yeah.
He was groomed and handpicked by Kevin. You have Jizzy, who Kevin loved his band, Love Hate.
Love hate. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, Jizzy
Yeah.
Pearl.
Dizzy Pearl.
And yeah, he had a lot of respect for him and also for I'll never forget the day that Kevin brought in the bus the Typo Negative CD, and he goes, "Check these guys out." So
Yeah.
now we got Johnny Kelly
Yeah.
from Typo playing drums, and Frankie asked him because initially Johnny was subbing while Frankie was having chemotherapy, and then it got to a point that Frankie could not tour anymore, so he asked him to become the drummer in the band. So these are my bandmates have been handpicked by the previous members in the band. And I got to tell you, I could not have a better bunch of guys to go out with and do what we do, which is celebrate the legacy and the memory of our
I think
brothers.
I think that's great that you do that, man, because it's that connection to the history and the lineage of the band, which I think is great. You know, I really do. It's great that Johnny's in the band too. I love
Yeah.
Typo too. You know what I mean? So, you
Oh,
know, that Bloody Kisses record, there were some great ones. You know what I mean? Over
oh
the
yeah.
time, that I played those on the radio too, of course. You know what I mean? So
Yeah. Yeah.
but I think
I love
that's
that.
awesome. And Rudy, I just gotta say, you know, I know that you know running out of time here in the studio, but I love getting to talk to you today, and I want to do it again. I want to definitely have you
Absolutely.
back in and have you in person. You know, after after the summer or something. But we got to hang out, and
I
I'm
love
just
to.
I
I
you
love
know
to.
just love talking music with you. I can't like just getting the background of knowing you were an Angel for a while blows me away. Like I'm like, how did I not know that? Like, and I'm just like, you know what I mean? Because I was such a big fan, but I must have at some point. And but I've always I think of you with Ozzy, Quiet Riot, Dio, but it's so cool that you were there with those guys for a while too. And
Yeah.
and I just thank you for all the great music and just being such a good dude and just a music lover and part of the scene and just bring that positivity that you bring. I mean, I think that's what we need more of. You know what I mean? It's like people that love music and love rock and roll. It's always important to just let people know how much you appreciate the music they made. So that's what I'm here to do with you, and I'm excited to see you at the OC Hair Metal Meltdown, which will be cool, and we'll hang out, which will be great.
Yeah, we're gonna be with our friends Greg White, Slaughter, Vixen. You know,
Yeah,
we tour, we do shows a lot around the country together a lot, and it's
yeah,
always such a joy to be in their company. They're
yeah.
wonderful, wonderful people.
All great people.
and great bands.
Yeah, and I
great
can't wait.
bands.
I can't wait. I haven't seen Mark Slaughter in a long time, and Jack. So
Oh, he's
it'll be
doing great. He's doing great.
Yeah, he's awesome.
You should talk to Dana, because Dana Strum is the one responsible for getting Randy and Ozzy together, and he's got some great stuff.
Oh, I gotta get Dana. I gotta get Dana on here on the show too. Dana Strum's great, man. Yeah,
he is.
I want to hear all that. So that'll be great. So listen, I want to tell you, Rudy, thank you for taking the time this afternoon to do this. All right, it was great.
My pleasure, Matt.
Rudy Sarzo, man, what a great interview and a great hang with him today. Something I've been wanting to do for a long time. And so, anyway, I want to thank you so much for watching and listening to the show. This is KLOS, new and approved. I'm Matt Pinfield, and we'll see you next time around.